In the world of the NFL, there are always a few surprise teams that find a way to seemingly defy the odds. Often, this is in the form of a team going from worst to first or close to it. The last 3 seasons have shown us examples of these in the 2021 Bengals, the 2022 Jaguars, and especially the 2023 Texans. But for these runs to be shocking and entertaining, the divisions that those teams fought through had to be competitive and full of contenders. Well, today we're diving into the division that may just be the most competitive in the NFL, just for all the wrong reasons. This is the 2024 NFC South. Welcome to our special summer series previewing all 8 divisions of the NFL as we try to build our preseason betting portfolio using the best trends, theories, and projections. Today's a deeply interesting one as we examine a division that has consistently produced down-to-the-wire title races multiple times this decade. They've just done it with an assortment of mediocre teams. The NFC South, consisting of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, and the New Orleans Saints, has had some shakeups this offseason as well as a fair number of variables that could impact who comes out on top in late 2024. Before we dive in, let's go over the format for those of you new to this month-long NFL season preview series. In each of these 8 videos, I'll be looking at every team's schedules, Vegas odds, and offseason adjustments, then compare them to the results from last season to try and predict the outcome for every team in every division in football. In addition, I'm going to pick one season-long player prop from each team that I think is close to a must-play. If you all enjoy this series, please interact with the video by liking it and leaving a comment with your thoughts on the NFC South. If enough of the videos do well, I'll combine my predictions, make a final playoff bracket video, and pick a Super Bowl winner too. Regardless, please enjoy, and without further ado, let's dive into the NFC South. 4th place, New Orleans Saints. This is probably my hottest take, but I think the Saints might be the worst team in football this year, and that's with the weakest strength of schedule by the numbers. Sure, they made some moves, signing Chase Young to a speculative deal and finally drafting a real left tackle, but their ridiculous cap issues from the past half-decade kept them from making any truly significant moves. Regardless, no one move could fix the gaping holes on the roster or the enormous coaching deficit that they face every single week. In all honesty, I don't know how Dennis Allen has a job. The Saints have been so painfully mediocre that they've become entirely bland to watch. More importantly though, they have been stuck trying to replicate the Sean Payton days for years. Between Taysom Hill packages and stealing touches from Chris Olave in order to feed the corpse of Michael Thomas, the cracks were everywhere. Coming into this season, those cracks look even larger to me. Derek Carr wasn't terrible last season, but he did a lot of stat padding, averaging 250 yards per game in losses after week 5 versus 220 in wins. The loss of Michael Thomas hurts for sure, and I don't see a clear replacement for his production when healthy on this roster, although I do like Rashid Shaheed. Obviously, I love the Saints under 7.5 wins this season, but as we look at props, I want to be fair and find a player who I think can be profitable. Because of the stacked backfield in NOLA, I don't love any rushing props, but the receiving room is just thin enough to be a winner. Rashid Shaheed last year cracked 700 receiving yards, but has his line at 675.5 receiving yards on this year. It is tempting to go back to the well of Chris Olave, but I never feel great taking it over above 1,000 for any skill player. So I'll be taking Rashid Shaheed to have over 675 receiving yards in a season without Michael Thomas as the presumed wide receiver 2. Looking at the Saints' schedule, I only feel good about their chances in 2 games, against the Broncos and the Raiders, 2 teams with massive questions at quarterback. Assuming that they overperform slightly, I have the Saints finishing the year at 4-13, squarely in 4th place in the NFC South, and possibly in the race for the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. 3rd place, Carolina Panthers. Very few teams were in a rougher position than the Panthers after last season. Questions about a potential draft bust, a gaping hole in the coaching department, and a roster with very little promise. To be honest though, I like their chances of getting off the bottom and surprising some people. There's some great indicators that the Panthers are on the up and up. To start, Carolina has the 3rd easiest strength of schedule in the entire league this season, and they'll face 5 teams with new starting quarterbacks, either rookies or new acquisitions. They've also invested heavily in giving QB Bryce Young the best chance to succeed in his sophomore season, spending $150 million on a new pair of guards for the O-line, fortifying their defense with a huge free agency period, and, most importantly, drafting a couple of excellent weapons to develop alongside Young. I love Xavier Legette and Jonathan Brooks, and Jatavion Sanders in the 4th round may have been the steal of the draft. Finally, I love the Dave Canales hire. Canales revived Geno Smith, brought Baker Mayfield deep into the playoffs, and now he has plenty of pieces and talent to toy with. But now we have to be fair and look at the bad. Starting with Canales' offense, there are a lot of unknowns. Between the free agent acquisitions and a nearly brand new receiver room, chemistry might come down to whether Bryce Young can step up, which I'm not confident about. On the other side of the ball, the new-look Panthers defense isn't just short on high-end talent, but between aging players and injury-prone ones, I'm not sure how many starters will be able to go for 17 games. Shifting to props, most books aren't offering a ton of Panthers coverage. The running back room is too deep to pick a primary ball carrier, and I don't feel strongly either way about Bryce Young's second second-year passing numbers. With that being said, Deontay Johnson's 750-yard receiving line is definitely too rich for my blood. It especially seems like a good under to hammer when you look at the other Carolina additions of Xavier Legette and Jatravion Sanders, resulting in an unpredictable and varied receiving core. So, do I think the Panthers are going to be good? No. But I do think they're going to improve vastly from last season, jumping to a 6-11 record. It's nothing to write home about, but their schedule isn't as soft as the numbers make it sound, with tough matchups throughout the year. I'm not sure if Bryce Young is the guy, but I think that the Panthers now have the talent and coaching to win with average QB play. Second place, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So here lie the defending division champs, led by the prodigal son, Baker Mayfield. The Bucs technically haven't been bad since Tom Brady signed with them in 2020, but they were certainly underwhelming in the GOAT's farewell season, and expectations weren't high when Mayfield was brought on to start. Most channels like mine predicted that the Bucs would end up being the team to draft Caleb Williams in April, but Baker's Bucs had other plans. On the back of another Mike Evans legacy year and an unexpectedly solid defense led by Levante David and Antoine Winfield Jr., a 9-8 record combined with some timely tiebreaker wins to earn the Bucs a spot in the playoffs. As the 4 seed, they upset the defending NFC champion Eagles and gave the Lions all they could handle. The blueprint was there to build a contender around the established core, but I don't know how much Tampa Bay really improved. In fact, I think they're a known quantity now, and regression is incoming. The draft wasn't anything special, picking up offensive line help and some weapon prospects, and their free agency largely focused on retaining Levante David, though I do like the Jordan Whitehead pickup. On the coaching side, I still don't trust Todd Bowles, and the loss of Dave Canales will hurt the offense in a big way. With the 5th easiest strength of schedule in football, Tampa Bay has a good number of winnable games, but I don't think too many coin flips will go in their favor. When I look at Bucs props, I have a hard time not pouncing on Rachaad White's rushing line of 825.5 yards after he had 990 yards last season. Tampa's O-line got better this offseason, and they don't have a good enough backup rusher to steal significant carries. I also think it bears mentioning that Mike Evans, the perpetrator of 10 straight 1,000+ yard seasons, has his line set at 1,000.5 receiving yards. Do with that information what you will. I have the Buccaneers comfortably in second place in the division, and they could definitely be a frisky playoff team again. But as of right now, I have them going 8-9 because of the number of teams they've faced that they either can't beat in a shootout or won't be able to score on in a defensive battle. I think the loss of Canales as offensive coordinator will be felt immediately, but I don't expect any individual player to be a bust this season. I simply expect the Buccaneers to be the mediocre poster child of the NFC South. First place, Atlanta Falcons. I had the Falcons winning this division last season, and they didn't even have a quarterback. So with the same team and a good to great quarterback, I have to lock them in. The firing of Arthur Smith was the cherry on top, and Raheem Morris's hiring may be a wild card, but it's one I can stomach. To say the least, the Falcons were messy last season. Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder couldn't find an offensive identity, and even games when they seemed to click ended up going the other way. Atlanta lost 4 of 5 to end the year, capping off a 3-7 back half of the 2023 season. The good thing is, the framework of a truly excellent team was already laid, and the Falcons front office knew it. Maybe a little too eagerly, they signed Kirk Cousins to be their new starting quarterback and brought in Raheem Morris, a defensive guru, as their new head coach. Now, a lot of people don't love the signing because of the number of young offensive pieces that need guidance in Atlanta, but I think the Falcons did this assuming they'd be getting a veteran quarterback who would help manage the offense. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and others are all in a good position to prosper with a more experienced signal caller, and thanks to the O-line that Atlanta has established over the past few years, run and pass protection are both in great shape. Morris will have to work some magic on defense, but the addition of Braylon Trice and Rook Orororo to the personnel can only help the cause. In 2023, the Falcons already sniffed the edges of the top 10 defense conversation, and with a great new coaching staff and a quarterback who will definitely throw more touchdowns than interceptions, the Falcons look like a perfectly balanced team to me. Quick aside, you'll notice I didn't mention Michael Penix Jr. at all. To be frank, I don't expect to see him much this year at all. Kirk is the starter, and I think he's going to do very well, but that doesn't mean I think the pick was bad or anything, it's just not relevant today. I didn't talk much about the Falcons' weapons, but when looking at props, it's hard to properly estimate the value they'll gain from getting competent quarterback play. Does Bijan get more rushing yards when the passing game gets better? I doubt it. Moreover, I do not have faith in Drake London to crack 1,000 receiving yards when the Falcons added so much talent and wideout for Kirk to use. Because of this, I'm going to do something risky and wager that Kyle Pitts is finally going to get real targets this year, taking his over on receiving yards to 750.5 yards. Pitts had 670 yards last season with Jonnu Smith stealing targets. I think new OC Zach Robinson will finally use Pitts' physicality and find his ceiling. When all is said and done, I see the Falcons as a sneaky contender with a record around 12-5 coming in 2024. Their offense is too well built, in my opinion, to come up short against anyone except the best of the best NFL defenses. Luckily for Atlanta, most of those great defenses are in the AFC and off their schedule, leaving a clear path for a very successful season. And that's the NFC South. To recap, I have the Atlanta Falcons winning the division with a 12-5 record, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finishing in second place with an 8-9 record, the Carolina Panthers take a step forward and come in third at 6-11, and I think the New Orleans Saints are going to fall off an absolute cliff, landing at 4-13 and the basement of the division. The NFC South might not be the most interesting division in the league, but I feel that we're going to see some high quality, scrappy football out of these ground and pound under the radar teams.